Hey, Katie, this lady'd like you to sign her book, so I'm going to bring him inside, okay?
No problem at all.
Okay,
Thank you, Al.
you bet.
Thanks. 3 weeks after the election, the legal battle over the presidency rolls on. Will America wait for a final answer from the courts? Chris Matthews is host of MSNBC's Hardball, and Jonathan Alter is a writer for Newsweek and an NBC News contributor. Good morning again, fellas.
Good morning, Katie.
Here we go again. All right, well, first off, I'd like to ask you about George W. Bush's speech last night. Before I do that, let me just roll a quick bite so we can get some reaction.
This has been a hard-fought election, a healthy contest for American democracy. But now that the votes are counted, it is time for the votes to count.
Obviously, Jonathan, he chose his words extremely carefully, trying to strike a balance between being, you know, a dignified president-elect and also kind of tough on Al Gore, saying, you know, enough is enough, to the Democrats. How well do you think he did?
I think he did pretty well, but you chose the right bite there, Katie. He said now that the votes are counted, and that is the essence of what this dispute is about, because the Republicans think the votes have been counted, and the Democrats don't. They are focusing especially on those 10,000 votes in Miami-Dade that they say the machine spit out, couldn't read, and that they need to be gone over with a hand count. So it's true that if this was a tennis match, you'd say advantage Mr. Bush, but in terms of the actual debate, we're back to where we were before, machine count versus hand count.
What did you think, Chris, of his performance, first of all?
Terrible performance, because it looked like it had been written by someone else and not read by him until he read it on national television. I think the American people are dying for some spontaneous connection with the man who's going to be their next president, whether it be Gore or Bush, and they haven't gotten any in 3 weeks. These guys have both acted like automatons, like robots. They've been remote. They should go out and sit around a coffee shop and chat with people. They should connect. And even last night, at the moment when he was claiming victory, which is what he was doing, he should have been speaking to us as a human being, to other human beings, and not giving a robotic text that someone else wrote.
Well, in fairness to him, though, I mean, he was at a podium. He was obviously reading off a teleprompter.
He's the boss, Katie. He didn't have to be at a podium. He didn't have to be reading off a teleprompter. All he had to do was walk out to the press, memorize 2 or 3 points. He can handle that. 2 or 3 points, memorize them, and state them clearly to the American people. He didn't even have somebody write it for him, like Andy Card or Jim Baker or Dick Cheney, to write this for him. He needed to say it himself in his own human way. He's very charming, as we know, when he sits down like this and chats. He should have chatted with the American people last night. That should have been a fireside chat like Roosevelt gave, instead of giving this cold, almost robotic legal statement.
But clearly, Jonathan, he was trying to be presidential.
He was trying. He was talking about things like the marriage penalty and the estate
the
tax.
Death tax.
It was a little bit premature for him to be getting into what his agenda would be as president, especially since everybody knows that if the count had gone the other way, the Bush people still had legal challenges, and they would not have conceded to Gore if Katherine Harris had certified Gore the winner. They would have said, well, we still have a Supreme Court challenge, and we have some lengths yet to play here. So he's a little bit ahead of people, but the certification is nonetheless important because it gives him a kind of a psychological advantage now going down the road.
All right, let's get to the real nitty-gritty. How much a chance does Al Gore have in contesting this election, Chris?
Watch tonight, because I think the dueling banjos are going on here of personalities, and I think Al Gore is going to give a good speech tonight. I think what he's going to try to do, first of all, forget he's talking to the American people. That's just PR. The PR is the PR. He's talking to a majority of those judges on this Florida Supreme Court. He's going to try to reach 4 of the 7. The more liberal judges. I'm not saying partisan. I mean more liberal in the sense who believe every vote should be counted. And he's going to appeal to them and say, you guys decided that 10 days ago was an artificial deadline for counting the ballots. Don't make yesterday an artificial deadline. Don't punish the voters because the local people couldn't get the job done on time or chose not to get the job done on time. Let every vote count. Count the Dade County 10,000 votes. And if they do that, if 4 of those 7 judges decide that Al Gore's the next president, it's as simple as that.
Jonathan, do you think the Gore camp does have some legitimate grievances about the way this whole thing was carried through, the fact that Miami-Dade sort of stopped its recount midstream, actually before they got to the halfway mark, the fact that the Palm Beach County manual recount was not even included in the state's final tally?
I do. There were 3 counties that they wanted recounted, and they only got 1, Broward, completed. If Gore were smart, he might say, look, this is not about dimples and pimples. It's about the kind of ballot where there actually has been a perforation, where somebody has tried to vote, punched all the way through, but for whatever reason, the machine didn't read it. And there are ballots like that.
But the Republicans will argue, Jonathan, well, hey, that happens in every election. There are a lot of Republican ballots that were not registered by the machine, and that's just the way it goes.
Well, I think the Gore people's response to that will be, we called for a statewide hand count. The Republicans didn't want to do it in the counties that favored them, so it has come down to these other counties. As a matter of fact, Miami-Dade is about 50-50. It's not an overwhelmingly Democratic county, but it comes down to the Democrats to the principle of, should every vote count? The Republicans are saying, we've counted every vote.
You know, I really think this is up in the air, Katie. I know everybody wants to know who's going to win. I think Gore has as good a chance of being the next president as George W. Bush. At least as good a chance. And I think that he's going to know exactly what he has to do tonight. He's got to reach to the heartstrings of America and say, you got your kids to vote. They're 18 years old. You got them out to vote. You voted yourself on bad weather days. You got out there. Why take those 10,000 votes in Miami-Dade and deny them the right to vote? Just recount them. I'm not asking for dimples or pimples or pregnant chads. I'm saying just count the votes where the people pushed through the puncher. They made it clear through, but there was a hanging chad or a swinging chad left. That's all he's asking for.
What if the Republicans say, hey, you know, the networks called Florida early. That sent thousands of people on from the Panhandle on the Gulf Coast home before voting, and many of those might have supported George W. Bush.
I'd say to them, get themselves as good a lawyers as Gore's got and get in there and fight your case.
That's like the Palm Beach. That's like the Palm Beach Buchanan votes. That's something that you can't do anything about. This other thing, recounting these votes, is something that you could conceivably do something about. I don't agree with you, Chris, that Gore has an even chance. Bush has the advantage here because Gore has to get almost every court decision going in his favor, up to...
Only needs one, John. One big one, Dade County.
But he has to go up to the controlling legal authority, the Supreme Court of the United States, which I think will...
Well, let me be honest. I think this guy, Gore, is the most focused person in the world. It drives me crazy at times he's so focused. But he's been looking at these counties on the coast down there, Broward County, Palm Beach, and Dade, for months at least, when he picked Joe Lieberman. He says, I need those counties to win this election. I need that state to win this election. He's been focusing for so long. He put Lieberman in there for week after week to campaign down there. He knows those areas. He is focused. He's intent. Gore won't quit. He's a Gila monster. He will fight to the end.
He's a what?
You know, these little animals that grab on you and don't leave go.
Like
he's not
a pit bull?
Yeah, well, worse.
Well, he wasn't able to
the
get
desert version. I don't think he's going to quit, by the way. I think he's going right through the
He's not going to quit he's not going to quit unless Dick Kephart and Tom Daschle tell him to quit. Any other talking head is not going to talk him into quitting.
The day that those guys stand up to him will be quite a day, John. I agree with you, but it ain't going to come.
All right, that's Jonathan, right. Also Chris Matthews finally agreeing on something. Thanks, guys. And you can catch more of Chris every night at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC, at 8 p.m. and at 8 p.m. rather on CNBC. Did I get it right?
I wasn't listening, but I'm sure you're always right, Katie.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Correct. Up next, what the Supreme Court might do to decide the presidency. But first, these messages.